We're back for another video. We are back. I'm been over here multitasking. We are back for another video. How y'all doing? I see you, Linda Gamble. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much, Miss Mary. I see you here. Thank you guys for being here. We'll give you guys a few minutes just to get in. Okay. Yes. Give me 1 second, guys. Let me get this in. I'm supposed to have this already up. Okay. Hope you guys had a great day today. Hi. Hope y'all had a great day today. I sure did. I'm sorry, y'all. Okay, almost there. Hey, I see y'all coming in. Come on in, guys. Please hit the like button as you come in. We're going to get started here momentarily, okay? Yes, we're going to finish up this deposition tonight, hopefully, because it is a lot. It is a lot. Oh, what the hell? I'm tripping. It's time for me to go to bed. It's time for me to go to bed. I'm so damn tired. Oh, my God, this has been a day. All right. Let's get started. All right. Thank y'all for hitting the like button as you enter. I've been getting my show together for tomorrow as well. All right. Let me get set up here. Move you out the way. Move you in the way. All right. Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Says hello, Rell. Hi. All right. So let's get started. So I got a quick little video right before we get into it. I don't like to just jump right in. Y'all know I like to have other stuff going on. All right, so I got a video I want to play for you guys. Now, let me ask the question before I play the video. All right, as neighbors, if you saw that your neighbor was cheating on their spouse, okay, would you go and knock on your neighbor's door or ring your neighbor's doorbell to tell them that you've been seeing some said person coming to their house when they leave for work every day? Would you guys do that? I have a video I want to show you guys. Or do you think that that's being a nosy neighbor and that you don't want to get in somebody else's business? I try not to get in somebody else's business, but I damn sure will be looking out the window like, what's going on over there? Okay, but I ain't about to go knock on your door and tell you shit because that ain't none of my business. But let's get into it.
Hey, I live in the neighborhood. My Wi-Fi name is 1744. Your wife is cheating. I don't know how you did not catch on. Your address is 1744, but every day when you leave for work, a Nissan parks 3 houses down, walks up the side of your house, goes in your back door. I'm assuming you don't have cameras back there? Okay, your wife is smart, but she is unfaithful. I'm going to walk this way, but I don't live this way. Hello? Hey, I just wanted to apologize for last night. I know I probably shouldn't have broke the news like that, but I had a few drinks.
Are you the guy that changed his Wi-Fi name to 1744? Wife is cheating?
Yes, I thought I was being clever by using your address. I thought you would catch on. It was stupid, but no, dude, she is cheating. Every time you go to work, I see this guy walk up the side of your driveway and go into your back door.
Okay, so you got a few things wrong there. The wife is the one that's actually driving and going to work, and the guy is for me, and yes, he does come in my back door.
Oh, wow, all right, fuck, my bad, dude.
Yeah. I mean, thank you, though. Like, I really didn't have the courage, and this is actually life-changing.
I'm very glad I could help, and I'm also sorry at the same time. All right, have a good one.
What y'all think about that? I don't think I would be trying to be doing it. I would not do that. I'm sorry. Now, I damn sure will be looking out the window. Like I said, I'm going to be looking out the window and being nosy as hell, but I'm not coming knocking on nobody's door. And I damn sure ain't about to be ringing nobody's doorbell like, hey, when you leave for work now, your wife is up in there, honey, with her legs up in the ceiling fan there. I just want to let you know, and it's been going on every day. I ain't about to tell you, Jack. You figure it out on your own, okay? You don't see them tire marks, child, or them footprints coming up to your door. I don't know what to tell you. I ain't getting into that shit. Because people be crazy nowadays. Was that not crazy? I wanted to share that. I saw that today. I said, I'm so going to share that on my live today. Somebody said, yeah, I'm going to be nosy. But I ain't telling you. I'm that way. I'm going to be nosy, but I damn sure ain't about to be, hey, let me tell you something. Let me tell you what I found out. Like, no, I'm not doing that. Hell to the no. Hell to the no. All right. Okay. Now, I do want to play this clip right before we get into the deposition because this is something I ran up on today where Marcel and Maurice are talking about some jobs that's dealing with this deposition. I kind of ran up on this. I was like, somebody said, thank you. I love your hair. Thank you so much. I just pulled it up because I don't want it on my neck. But I want to play this because it kind of ties into what they were talking about in the deposition with the different jobs that they were hired for. And Marcel actually mentions that Tisha really didn't want to be a part of doing any of these jobs. But let's go ahead and play. I'm gonna play the audio because you know OWN is funny about us sharing video of their stuff.
Every day is a new
after
opportunity.
This ad. Then we're going to get into the deposition, okay? Because I know you guys are very, very anxious to get back into it. Come on, ads. Get out of here. Almost there. Yeah, I don't be in nobody else's business, too. I'm so to myself.
I've been working diligently on this apartment deal. You know, just to be able to build these apartments. I was talking to the owner of the apartments yesterday. His partner has some land, and he's looking to do another deal that's maybe 150 units.
How many units is the one that you're building now?
120.
So it's bigger.
It's bigger, plus it's going to have a retail.
So you're going to do the retail and the residential?
Uh-huh.
God, dog.
Dead serious, man. It's literally go time. Scout has really been taking off. I mean, we're getting some really big projects, and I'm excited. Sometimes I wish that my wife was just as excited about these things as I am. I don't know, man. It just feels like, dang, man. It feels like we got these deals and everything, and it just feels like I got them.
You feel like you got them?
I just feel like it's not Tisha and I.
You feel like it's not Tisha and you? Like what? You guys aren't working together?
It's like Tisha and I, not on the same team.
Why? Why would you say that? I mean, she's in school.
Literally. After signing a contract, imagine you and your team getting the big winning the championship game, and you're over there celebrating, jumping up and down, and they're kind of on the phone, typing an email, sending some stuff like this, and they're not celebrating at all. And you're like, I thought this was a win for us. Turns out this is a win for me. I don't know if this is a Marcel pushing Tisha to do this right here, or Tisha actually wants to do it.
I'll tell you this, she has a whole lot of commitment for someone who may not want to do it.
Okay. She has a lot of commitment to the podcast. That's what I think she wants to do. I feel like I'm the only person in this business. I feel like we have separate goals. I feel like we have separate targets.
Okay, this is what I'm trying to find out. Is this what Tisha wants to do?
I'm trying to find that out as well.
I really want to make sure we are both growing together. What does it matter if you have a great plan if by the time you get there, you're not, on the same page, you're not together?
I've always said that I feel like Tisha has always been the one to just go to school because every time we've seen, all Tisha does is go to school and get accolades and degrees and stuff so that she can be the silent partner behind the bullshit that Marcel is doing with this damn business, in which we already see. It's a hot damn mess, okay? Like, it's a hot damn mess. But as you can see there on the episode, they did talk about the actual apartments, and that is listed in the deposition, okay? All right, so let's get back to where we picked up, where we left off last night. Let me get to it. Oh my God, y'all, I'm so tired. Shout out again to Trending. I'm sorry, y'all. Ugh. Shout out to Trending at some point, okay? Because she did give me the permission to use it. All right. So shout out to her. And I told her I would definitely shout her out for that. Okay. Let me find my video. I try to be prepared, y'all, but sometimes I don't know. I be on something else sometimes, Lord. Lord. Y'all just talk amongst yourselves. I'm coming. Shit's so crazy. All right, I'm coming, y'all. I'm coming. Okay. Let me put it back up. I know I saved it. How's my sugar daddy doing? Oh, he's doing good, child. Still wormed up, honey. I told y'all I'm Wanda's stepmama over here, child. I'm her stepmama. She gonna be mad as hell at me about that too. But y'all know I don't be caring. I'm Wanda's stepmama because y'all know, yeah. Her dad is my sugar daddy. I mean, yeah. But anywho, let's get on with this thing. Child. It's so much. All right, so where we start? We need to go. All right, so 1. Oh, wait, shit. No. Oh. No, I need part 2. Part two. Shit. I'm sorry, y'all. We got to get into the witness list as well. Like I said, she did give me permission for the video, so we will be getting into that as well. What the hell did I do with the video? This shit is so crazy. Lord. All right. No, I need part 2. Okay, here we go. Damn. Oh. All right. So this is where we left off last night.
Gotta get their own attorney. Right. Oh my gosh. Okay, then it says, the attorney says, they're the folks that actually came and did the work. And Marcel said, can you repeat the question? And then the attorney says, James Freeman and Mark Scott were the folks that showed up instead of Legier and John on this job, right? Marcel says no. Then he says, okay, but we are in agreement that Mr. Carroll and Mr. Allen never worked on this project, correct? Marcel says, this is how I'm like, Bugs, I am so sorry. Joy, I'm so sorry. The attorney said they never showed up on the job. I'm sorry. It was an agreement that Mr. Carroll and Mr. Allen never worked on the project, correct? Marcel said this project never existed. The attorney says this project never existed, Zen Gardens. And then Marcel said Zen Gardens to start on October 27, 2019 never existed. The attorney said, did Zen Gardens get built? It did. Okay. Did it get built pursuant to the bid that you put in? No. Okay. Why are we here? Then the attorney says, Mr. Scott, going back to Exhibit 1, you said that this was part of a bid package. Is that correct? Marcel said, I believe so. Yes, sir. All right. And what's not included, it looks like, are the numbers for the project. I think the final number that was bid was like $10,300,000, something like that. Does that sound about right? Marcel said, no, sir. And then the attorney says, that's wrong. He says, yes. Okay. What was the first bid that you put on? Marcel says, I believe it was somewhere around $12.7 million. The attorney says 12.7. Okay. I assume that you kept a copy of the first bid that you put in. Is that right? Correct. Okay. And what would be records that your lawyer would have and he'd be able to produce to me? And Marcel said, yes. Okay. So getting back to the statement of qualifications, did you ever submit a second statement of qualification to Zen Gardens? No, sir. Okay. So this is the only one that was ever sent to Zen. That was the statement of qualifications. Yes. Okay. Let's look at page 723, relevant project experience. Now, the first project that's listed on page 723 is the Hunters Ridge Apartments, right? So this is his qualification. They just asked him all that background. Y'all saw why. I ain't gonna repeat it. Y'all saw. That was and then the attorney says that was the ones that burned and were rehabbed, correct? Marcel says yes. The attorney says, all right. And that was done at a cost of $415,000, right? Yes. And then you list when the project occurred, and it was about 5 months in 2013, 2014, correct? And were you the project manager? Yes. And Infinity Properties that you've listed here as the client, that was your wife's company, right? Correct. Okay. Monarch Apartments, that's a 60-unit apartment, correct? And that was a rehab project, right? Yes. And that was $1.4 million, right? Correct. You were the project manager and the client was MJS LLC. I'm sorry, you were the project manager and the client was MJS LLC, which was a company that you and your wife owned. Correct. Okay. Then we start getting into these other fellows and their experience. Legier, you say, was the project manager on a $36 million project in Chamblee, Georgia. Correct. Is the purpose of this list to say that these projects that we've done, is the purpose of this list to say these are projects that we've done and my people have done? Is that what the purpose of this list is? Relevant project experience. And Marcel says the purpose of this list is to show the relevant experience that these people that are joining the Scope team have been a part of. All right. Okay, I'm going to skip a little bit of their thing because we get the gist of he listed them and then they didn't even come work for them. And then the other ones were his own stuff. That's what I got. So I'm going to skip y'all down a little bit.
Fraud.
Here we go. Let's get to Michael Scott. It says, you've got Michael Scott, your uncle, who worked on an $80 million project for one Shell Square in New Orleans, correct? That's correct. Okay. Oh, no, I'm not going to do that. It's so many other things. And it says a $49 million project in Houston, Texas for Veneer Construction Management. Do you know if he was employed by Veneer Construction Management? I don't. Thank you, Lisa. I'm trying to keep it going, y'all. So I'm trying to see y'all, and I appreciate y'all being in the comments and being active. Looks like he's got several multi-million-dollar projects, all done for Veneer Construction Management out of Houston. There are 3 listed. Is that right? And Marcel doesn't respond. Were any of these, to your knowledge, multi-family apartment buildings, or do you know? Well, it looks, and Marcel says, well, it looks like, reading from the sheet, like 4 of them were. And then the attorney says, which 4? And Marcel says, well, 5. And then he lists the 5. All right. And then it says, the attorney says, all right, now your project says the project manager. Would you agree with me that the cost of those was significantly less than any of the other costs? They were smaller projects. And Marcel said, I would definitely agree. And then he says, is this your resume? Marcel's resume. And Marcel says, yes. He said, the first kind of bullet in it is an area of expertise. Do you see that? Yes. And who compiled this document? Is this something that you prepared? No. Who prepared it? The company. I don't remember. Where would the company have gotten the information about your experience? A conversation with me. So you would have been the genesis of this information. Yes. Okay. It looks to me like the area of expertise. There's 17 items that you're holding out yourself out as an expert. Is that true? 17 items. Marcel says no. Then the attorney says, which area of expertise here would you not be an expert in? Marcel says, I can't answer that question. Then the attorney says, you list your education as a Master of Science degree from the University of Alabama, Huntsville in business analytics, correct? He says no. And then he says, oh, the attorney read it again. He says, you listed yourself as a candidate. He put candidate after all that, so you might miss the word candidate. All right. So then it says, you have a Bachelor of Science. And you know it's called BS, and it's just funny for Marcel. It's called BS, but I know that's what it's called. Business admin, Alabama A&M, Huntsville, Alabama, correct? And he says correct. Construction management certificate from Turner School, going back over his educational qualifications. All right. He says, remind me, John was supposed to be what on this job? The site superintendent? Correct. Then he says, what is Your Way Construction? And then Marcel said, I think he gets defensive because Marcel says, where'd you find that at? And then the attorney says it's under experience. And Marcel says, oh, that's my dad's construction company. And then they got Michael Allen. He says it's a summary of his experience. And Marcel says no. And then I'm sorry, he meant Michael Scott. He accidentally said Michael Allen. Okay. Let's keep it going. Okay, this is another person I think didn't show up. I see y'all laughing. Okay, it says
She's so tickled, it's funny.
What did it say? Jock Leonard. Jock Leonard is an architect who partially designed the Zen Garden project. And then Mr. Scott, did you have a general liability insurance on this job? I didn't know. I wasn't expecting that question. And Marcel says yes. And then he said, who with? Marcel said, I have to look it up. The attorney says, have you notified your insurance carrier that there's a claim being made against you for $5.5 million by Zen Gardens? Marcel said yes.
Thank you.
And then they said, have they offered coverage for that loss? No. Have they sent you a declaration or a declination, like declining coverage letter? No. Mr. Scott, I'm going to ask you some questions about this AIA contract that I've marked as Exhibit 2. All right. Let's see. Get down to where he asked him a question. He says, does your signature appear there on that document as the contractor? Yes. Now, it's my understanding, again, he said, it's my understanding that this was a guaranteed maximum price contract. Is that correct? That's correct. If I have my contracting people still in here, this is where they describe the type of contract. I need y'all to chime in, because a guaranteed maximum, I thought that's on behalf of the person that awards the contract. Like that's a safety net for the person that awards the contract, not for the contractor. That's where the contractor takes the most risk. So I need my contracting people to tell me if that's what guaranteed maximum contract is. Okay. So then the attorney asked Marceau, what does that mean? And y'all highlight it. Y'all let me know. Let me know if somebody answers that, because I want to highlight it to see if somebody does say that. Okay. He says, what does that mean? And Marcel says, I don't know the exact definition, but it seems that's the maximum price guaranteed. So Marcel is interpreting it as maximum price guaranteed. Well, no, okay, right now he said maximum price guaranteed. Okay. And then the attorney says guaranteed by who? And then Marcel says guaranteed by this contract. And the attorney says, would it be guaranteed that the contract will be performed by the contractor?
Yeah.
And then Marcel says, I don't know. Improper insurance, right? Let me see. I'm looking for my contract people. I'm trying to see if they in here. I don't see them yet. So I know Live, Laugh, Love. I think Soror. And I had somebody else.
Guys, can we get the likes up some more? We have almost 600 in the building with only 279 likes. Can we get them up just a little bit more so we can continue? Let's read some of you guys' comments so far. He said Marcel seems to not know a lot of things. Correct. He says he does not mind being a damn fool. Says he's really making himself look allegedly true scammer criminal. Yeah, that's what it's given. That's what it's given. That's what it's given. All right, let's go ahead and continue.
That was they did contracts. I'm trying to see. Okay, all right. But they're gonna explain it, but I just wanted somebody to back it up in the chat. But they're gonna explain maximum. Okay. So the attorney says guaranteed maximum price, and it says, quote, contract sum is guaranteed by the contractor, that is Marcel Scott, not to exceed $10,318,603, end quote. And the attorney says, is that correct? Marcel says that's part of the sentence. Yes. The attorney says, right. Now I'm going to keep going. Quote, subject to additions and deletions by change order as provided in the contract documents, period. Correct? Marcel says correct. And then he says, all right, quote, this maximum sum is referred to in contract documents as the guaranteed maximum price. Costs which would cause the guaranteed maximum price to be exceeded shall be paid by the contractor. Again, that is Marcel Scott. Without reimbursement by the owner would be Zen Gardens. The attorney says, did I read that right? Marcel said yes. The attorney says, An itemization of the GMP agreed to by owner and contractor as of this date is attached. And Marcel says correct. All right. He says, this says construction cost summary of Skoll Industries. Correct. Now, is this the document you prepared? Marcel says no. Do you know where it was prepared? Marcel says Vachal prepared it. And the attorney says, so this is something Mr. Shaw prepared, which the attorney is therefore Vachal. And Marcel says yes. And then the attorney says, would you agree with me that on that summary first page that the total direct cost was supposed to be $10,318,603? Marcel playing silly to me. He says, what page? He tells him where it is. And then okay. And then I feel like, oh, he said, where did that number come from? Do you know? Marcel said yes. That number came through the negotiation between Vachal and Marcel Scott with respect to the proposal that I submitted on October of 2019. How did you come up with the numbers that you submitted? There was no response from Marcel. Did you look at any drawings to submit your numbers? This is where Marcel starts trying to lay it on to, he's trying to lay it on to Vachal, because he says Vachal and I looked at the drawings. We brought all the contractors in. We got them hired. Their hired bid for what they would perform the work with. He presented contractors. I presented contractors. He reviewed some of my contractors and asked if we could use different contracts. Okay, that's the ceiling for the contract. Anything else would need an amendment. Live, laugh, love, my Leo sis. I was hoping you were still in here. Thank you. Yes, Marcel has signed a contract that gives him a ceiling, not the other way around. There is one that would benefit the contractor more, but Marcel went into a contract that benefits the owner more. That's the one he bid on. That's the ceiling unless there's an amendment in writing. Right. And it probably has to be bilateral too. It probably can't just be signed by one party, I would think. And thank y'all. Oh my gosh. Thank y'all so much for being in here. Please continue liking the video. Appreciate y'all for hanging in here. The facts are facting right now, okay?
Yes, they are.
All right. He said we had several conversations with respect to numbers. We worked on this bid together for about 3 months. We landed at a number we believed to be what it would cost based on his experience and my experience and my understanding of the contract and his understanding of what he could do this project for. The attorney said, did you submit a bid for $10 million?
They were trying to figure out how he came up with the numbers, as you guys heard her saying. This sounds like the same thing he did with Joy and Bugs. Like, he just picking numbers out the sky and then having somebody draw up the contracts, which I'm probably guessing is his sister, since she's supposed to be the secretary of the company. And they're asking him, where did you get these numbers? And he said nothing. So it's looking like he's been doing this for so long now. He kind of knows how to finagle his way into getting these big contracts and saying they're going to cost higher than what it's really going to cost, and then probably, I'm going to say allegedly, pocketing the rest of the money. And that's kind of how he did Joy, which is why she kept asking, I need an itemized printout of what you guys are spending and how much everything is. He didn't want to do that because he knew what he was actually doing behind the scenes. I got to pay this contract. I got to pay this person, saying all these people are going to be working on a project, and then only to find out that it's limited people working on the project, and the money that you're telling the person that's paying you is actually a lie because it's not that many people working on the project, and you're taking the money from the back end. So that's what it's given. And they're trying to see if he's doing that here with Zen Garden. So they're doing a whole walk down of how he got this.
Marcel says never did. The attorney says, I want to make sure Marcel says, I want to make sure I'm answering your question correctly. The question is, did I submit a bid? Will you repeat the question? The attorney said, did you ever submit a bid for $10 million? And then he named the rest of the amount for Zen Gardens. And Marcel says, can you clarify, submit a bid? Now that's the whole thing. He wants them to clarify, submit a bid. The attorney says, well, I don't know how much plainer I can get. I mean, did you write out a bid and give it to Zen Gardens and say, I can do it for this? And Marcel says no. And then he says, okay, was this contract time sensitive, time dependent? Marcel says, I don't understand what time dependent means. Yes, thank you. Soror, thank you you subscribed to Live, Laugh, Love. Awesome. She's good. Okay. Were there certain milestones that you were supposed to meet by certain dates? Marcel says, in this contract, where else would it be? Yes, in this contract. I'm answering. That's not what the attorney said. And then the attorney says, look with me on page 151, substantial completion. And he says, am I reading this right? Quote, subject to adjustments of the contract time as provided in the contract documents, the contract completion of the entire work not later than 365 calendar days from the date of the notice to proceed with commencement of the work. Correct? Marcel said that's correct. All right. And then he goes down and he says, quote, subject to adjustments of the contract time as provided in the contract documents, if portions of the work are to be completed prior to the substantial completion date or substantial completion of the entire work, the contractor shall achieve substantial completion of such portions by the following dates, end quote. And then it gives the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 milestones. And Marcel for now is saying correct. And then the notice to proceed was dated March 2nd of 2020. And then Marcel said, I don't have that information.
Of course.
Thank you, Flory Hood. Thank you so much. Which is why they're asking for an itemized list of expenses. And Live, Laugh, Love, they mentioned the closeout book. Remember, we were thinking about that. I was like, they got to be asking. It's not just a simple invoice. They're asking for his books. And yes, a closeout book is nothing
that's how he gonna get caught up, because his numbers are not going to match what Zen Garden's numbers are in the numbers that they're keeping, because he's telling them one thing and then his numbers are going to say something different, if he's even keeping a book of what's going on, because it's seeming like he's kind of mastered the art of telling companies that something's going to cost something, and I got X amount of people that I'm going to be using to do it, so I need you to pay me this, 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 and this, and I need this up front. And then he kind of goes on about his day and not finish the job and on to the next person. But he kind of put his own foot up his ass with this situation with Zen Garden, because they're appearing in this deposition to be very thorough. And he was not expecting that shit. But let's continue.
Can't get my words out now. It's nothing simple to deal with. Okay. Then Marcel says he doesn't have the information for the notice to proceed. But remember, he's a general contractor. He definitely has the notice to proceed, in my opinion. The attorney said, assume for me that it is March 2nd of 2020. Then he said, was phase 1 completed by September 2nd of 2020? Marcel said no. And then here's the clubhouse, y'all. When we talk about that 14 inches on the clubhouse, the attorney says, are you familiar with any problems with the clubhouse that was built out as Zen Garden Apartments? Marcel has no response. And then the attorney says, let's do it this way. Were you familiar with the fact that the clubhouse had to be torn down, the first version of it, and it had to be rebuilt? Marcel says not torn down, but I was familiar with the fact that the clubhouse was built out of spec and it had to be rectified. The attorney says it was 14 inches. The ceilings were 14 inches too low, right? Marcel says no, they were 3 feet too low. That's 36 inches, y'all. He's attesting to 36 inches. The attorney says, okay, so it had to be redone. And Marcel said correct. And the attorney said, which was not contemplated in your initial bid, right? Having to redo the clubhouse. Marcel said, I don't understand your question. And then it says, it's going to be more, the attorney says it's going to be more expensive to get, if you've got to tear stuff down and then start back up, right? Marcel says, no. The attorney says, okay, did you reuse the materials that had been issued in the first version of the clubhouse? Marcel said, yes, and back charge the contractor. Which I'm guessing he means his subcontractor, possibly. And then the attorney says, I think we said you did not make the 6-month phase 1 substantial completion. Marcel said, that's not what I said. And then the attorney said, did you meet phase 1, the 6-month from notice to proceed?
No.
Marcel said, can't answer that question. And then phase 2 was supposed to be completed in 9 months. And he's giving dates, and Marcel's saying no, they weren't completed. And I'm gonna skip because Marcel does his circle thing a little bit. And he was saying that's wrong. The attorney said, how is that wrong? Marcel says, I can't answer that. He doesn't want to stick to the dates. That's what he keeps going around and around with. He doesn't want to stick to these milestone dates, but that's what's in their contract. All right.
It don't matter if you didn't complete them within the time that was agreed, then you are not dealing within the contract. You're in breach of contract, pretty much. If you're supposed to have something, if you're supposed to have phase 1 done in 6 months and it's not done within that time, unless you contact Zen Garden and let them know you ran into some type of issue to where you might need to tweak the contract a bit so that you can stay within the ramifications of what was agreed upon, then, sir, you are in breach of contract. It don't matter if you sit there and say, I can't recall, or you don't. So bottom line is you are in breach of contract. Boom.
The attorney says, I'll just ask flat out, did you meet the 6-month substantial completion date for building 1?
No.
Marcel says, I can't answer that. And then he says, phase 2, did you meet it? Marcel says, I cannot answer that question. The attorney says, was your pay was contingent on meeting those dates, wasn't it? Marcel says, no. The attorney says, are you sure about that? Marcel says, I'm certain. All right. And then they go to the part of the exhibit, and it says, this is for progress payments, correct? Marcel said, correct. The attorney said, based upon applications for payment submitted to the architect by the contractor and certificates for payment issued by the architect, the owner shall make progress payments directly to the project subcontractors, suppliers, and vendors, and with respect to the contractor fee, directly to the contractor as provided below and elsewhere in the contract. Alternatively, owner may issue joint checks to the contractor and the project subcontractors, suppliers, vendors as appropriate and in owner's sole discretion. Did I read that right? Marcel said yes. All right. The attorney's quoting more of the contract. It says the contractor's fee shall be paid in 3 milestone installments, to wit, 1, $125,000 upon the contractor, upon reaching substantial completion of phase 1. Did I read that right? Correct. So in order to get paid, you had to meet those milestones, correct? No. Well, tell me how I'm wrong. The original milestones include a date. This does not include a date. And a date is not, he said, this portion is not subject to that date. And he's saying that there's no dates beside these milestones, is Marcel's thing. I'm not going to read y'all the whole thing again because he's rereading the paragraphs. And then the attorney says, okay, Mr. Scott, look down. You see down at the very bottom of the page, next to the footnote, or like a footnote, do you see some initials that are handwritten in there? Marcel says, yes. He says, who are those? Whose are those? Marcel said, those are mine. And then the attorney said, is there any doubt in your mind that this contract is the one that was governing this project out at Zen? Marcel says, not at this time. All right. He has him look down. There's some aggregate amounts previously paid by the owner. And he said, do you know if any subcontractors that you hired on this project ever put a lien on Zen Gardens property? Okay. Marcel says yes. He said, do you know how many? Yes. How many? 2. So he said, who were they? Theo Electric and Keith Petty's Heating and Cooling put a lien on Zen Gardens, okay? And then the attorney said, do you know why they put a lien on the property? Marcel puts it on Vishal and says, puts it on Zen Gardens and said they put a lien on the property because the owner, which is Zen Gardens, was paying those subcontractors directly, and then the owner did not pay them. The attorney says, that wasn't somebody that you were supposed to pay? He says, no, the owner did not pay them. Then the attorney says, did you have any subcontractors that you had not paid for any work on this project? And Marcel says, not at any time in accordance to our agreement. The attorney says, have you submitted a final invoice to either the architect on this matter or to the owner? Final invoice coming up again because Marcel's saying he hasn't gotten paid. The owner says we haven't gotten final invoices. Let's see. I have not submitted any final invoice to the architect. I have submitted all invoices to the owner's representative. And then the attorney says, and have you presented a final invoice to the owner's representative? Yes. When? I submitted the final after the audit was complete. 1 second, y'all. Double checking.
So he done kept the money and didn't pay the darn people and done got a lien on the darn property. See, that's the shit he been doing. And that's with everybody. He did it with Joy. And he did it with Buck. Kept that money. He thought he could do that with Zen, and that's done caught up with his ass. That's so crazy. That is so crazy. He did it with the excavation company, too. That's why they sued his ass for $60,000 with that equipment. Lord, these damn Scots, boy. We're waiting on her, okay, guys?
Hold on. I'm making sure I'm not missing. Oh, y'all, yes. Okay, I'm so sorry. We got to stop for a second because while y'all are on here, I didn't even see this. Thank you, Vanessa, for the $10. I'm sorry. I ain't going to say the other thing now because I want to connect your name in case you don't want your social media name connected to you. Thank you so much for the $10 Cashapp. I appreciate you. Thank you, Professor Demita Joe for the Cash App. Thank you so much. And thank you, Joyce Miles, for the Cash App. I see you. I appreciate you. And thank you, Mama V, for the Cash App. Thank you so much. So I'm telling you, look at your phone. Thank y'all so much. I appreciate you. Oh my gosh, y'all are showing out. Thank you so much. Oh yeah, there's an audit. There were 2 audits. Okay, let's see. Marcel says, I submitted the final after the audit was complete, and I submitted it in December 2021. I don't know the exact date. The attorney says, prior to filing this suit, did you ever request a mediation, or either you or through your lawyer? No. Do you recall whether or not you ever submitted any kind of written request for an extension of time? That's very important. That's what Live, Laugh, Love was talking about. If you get it in writing, you can get an extension of time. You maybe can still get your milestone incentives. And Marcel says no, he didn't. Who refers scope to these people? They submitted their bid with all the other bids. And since they were lower, they were woman-owned, black-owned, there will be subject to some protests, and then they were listing qualified contractors, bad apples. So you'd have to. I don't know. I would still have fought it, but that's why they ended up going with them at first, because they were lowest, most responsible according to their proposal. Let's see. Let me see. What did he say? He can't answer. Okay. I'm sorry, y'all. Let me do my disclosure. Everything said in the video is alleged, guys, and in my opinion, and is used for fair use and entertainment, okay? Again, for fair use and entertainment purposes only, okay? You know how far over the 365-day limit it was until the project was substantially complete? Okay. He says Marcel says that's not a valid question. Can I answer that? The attorney says, well, it is a valid question, so can you answer it? Marcel says, can I answer an invalid question? The attorney says, well, it's not an invalid question. It's a question that's being posed to you that you should answer under oath. So do you want to try? The question has too many, Marcel says the question has too many assumptions for it to be true, so I can't answer that question because it's not valid. So the attorney says, so you're refusing to answer the question. Marcel said, if you would like to answer or ask it properly, I'd love to answer it. The attorney said, no, I think I'm going to leave the question as phrased. It's pretty simple to understand. You were aware that this contract contained a clause for liquidated damages, were you not? Marcel said yes. And then the attorney said, I think they amended it. And then Mr. Rogers, which is Zen Garden's attorney, said the amendment still matches the terms. So he was saying basically, yes, there is an amendment, but the words didn't change. He think he running something. Keep it up there. I can't read it, but I'm keeping it up there for. I'm gonna keep it up there. Live, laugh, love. Okay. Hold on. Do you understand the purpose of the liquidated damages? And Marcel says, or the attorney says, yes. What's the purpose of liquidated damages? Why is that clause in the contract to your knowledge? Marcel says, can't answer that. Did you have legal representation prior to you entering into this contract? Marcel said yes. So you had a lawyer look over it for you. Marcel said I had legal representation prior to entering the contract. Maurice. Not really answering the question. The attorney says, were you aware that the contract had a provision which would outline how final payment was to be made to the contractor? Yes. And I'm trying to summarize some of this for y'all because Marcel, you know how he is. They go back anywhere within this deposition where information is false. It can be determined that the entire conversation. Kevin, I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. Yes. Okay, I'm trying to. Yeah, he had Maurice look over there. Okay, quote, this is important because they want their final payment. So, quote, the final payment constituting the entire unpaid balance of the contract sum shall be made by the owner to the contractor and or subcontractors as appropriate when the contractor has fully performed the contract, except for the contractor's responsibility to correct work as provided in Article 12 of the AIA document, and to satisfy other requirements, if any, which extend beyond the final payment. The contractor has submitted a final accounting for the cost of the work in the final application for payment. And he said, did I read that right so far? Marcel said, yes. Okay. He said, were you ever asked to participate in the audit? Yes. And so this one, Hill Fog, I think is the second one, the second audit. And Marcel's, the attorney said, who at Hill Fog contacted you? Marcel said, I don't know. Did you cooperate with the people from Hillfog? Yes. Did you provide them with any documents? Yes. Did you ever meet with them? He said, I provided them with everything they asked me for. That didn't answer the question. And he said, if they indicated that you did not return phone calls and that you did not provide them with documents, would they be mistaken about that? Marcel said, I don't know about missed phone calls, but I think they'd be mistaken if they said that I didn't provide them with the documents they requested to the best of my ability. Did you cooperate with Mr. Chosky? He said 100%. He said, going back to the final payment he says, quote, a final certificate of payment has been issued by the architect in accordance with section 12.2.2. Do you know if that has ever been done, a final certificate of payment being issued by the architect? Marcel said, I don't know if the architect participated in any aspect of this project, especially when it comes to payment. And then the attorney says, quote, owner shall have received lien waivers and indemnity agreements from the contractor and any subcontractor, supplier, or laborer requested by owner. End quote. Do you know if such lien waivers were received? Marcel said no, because there's a lien on the property. The attorney said such waivers and agreements to be in form and substance satisfactory to the owner. Owner shall have received a closeout book. Closeout book. Did you provide a closeout book to Zen Gardens? Marcel says a closeout book was provided. The attorney said, did that include all warranties and the list of subcontractors and suppliers and other such information as shall be reasonably requested by the owner? Marcel said, to the best of my knowledge, I believe so. Do you know if Zen Gardens, after this project was completed, actually had issues with the fire suppression system, which flooded the apartment? So this is one of the issues, fire suppression system. Marcel said no. Were you aware that the subcontractor did not warranty the work that he did? Marcel said not at all. Were you aware that there were issues with the HVAC subcontractor? I wasn't aware. And it says the HVAC units leaked into the apartments and caused damage. And that the HVAC subcontractor would not provide warranty work. And Marcel's attorney comes in and says, he tells Marcel, let Zen Gardens attorney finish their question for the court reporter and everybody. Don't overtalk him, basically, because you know he good for some overtalking. She's not on this, Pinky. I mean, she's not in this deposition. I don't know. I don't know how this works, but she's not in this deposition. I don't know why, but she's not. Okay, and it says, Marcel.
Y'all hear the shabby work that they did for Zen Garden, and they had to come back and hire another contractor to do all of this stuff all over again, which of course everything was already months and months and months behind. That's so sad. And he was on to the next job with somebody else doing the same shit that he just did to Zen Garden. Sad. So sad.
Said no. Then it says, were you aware that he refused to honor any type of warranty? No. Were you aware that the HVAC contractor that you hired attempted to place a lien on the property of Zen Gardens? Marcel says, I cannot answer that. Do you know what experience not petty HVAC, had with multifamily dwellings prior to this project? Marcel said, I know that his experience was sufficient for the owner to hire him. So you're saying the owner hired him? Marcel said, absolutely. He was a major contractor. And the attorney says, so he wasn't one of your subcontractors? And then Marcel said he was a major contractor hired by the owner and paid by the owner. And the attorney says, so that's your testimony today, that Zen hired him? And Marcel said, absolutely. The attorney said, okay. And then the attorney said,
he hiring all these little tree mechanics and tree contractors out here. And what he's doing is paying them what he want to pay them out of the bulk of what Zen Garden gave him, that was allowed for the people that was hired under him. And he's keeping the bulk of the money. That's what he's doing.
Did you have a contract with A1 Fire Protection, or does Zen have the contract? Marcel said, I had the contract. And then the attorney says, with Petty, it's Petty HVAC, is that right? Marcel said, that's correct. Then the attorney said, did you have the contract with Petty, or does Zen have the contract with Petty? And then Marcel says, I had the contract with Petty. I just feel like he answered that in circles too. Would that be true? I wish they aired portions of this interrogation on the news. I know, Sunny Sunshine. Would that be true with all of your subcontractors that you had the contract with them, and that were on the job? Marcel said, I can't say all, but the ones that I hired, yes, the ones that I hired for the most part managed. For example, you have companies like SJ and L, who I did not have a scope contract with. And the attorney says, what about Stanley? And Marcel said, yes, I had a contract with Stanley. Did Stanley do the site preparation work? Correct. And the attorney said, which was a substantial chunk out of the total contract, correct? Marcel said, correct. It was over $1 million. And Marcel says it's broken down into different categories, but yes, overall they had site and they had utilities. And the attorney says their contract was with you and not with Zen. And Marcel says, correct. With a concrete contractor, would he have a contract with you who did sidewalks and stairs and things of that nature? That's what the attorney said. And then Marcel says there are 2 different concrete contractors. One with me, one didn't. Who was your concrete contractor? And then Marcel says the concrete contractor that Vishal and I hired was Presidential Concrete. So he's trying to bring Zen Gardens back into it, that they hired them together. And then what did Presidential do as far as concrete work? And he said he did concrete, flat work, foundations, footings, sidewalks, curbs, gutters, elevated concrete. The attorney says, who is Alabama Concrete? And Marcel said, it's a vendor. And he said, okay, did Presidential Concrete do the stairs? And Marcel said, I think they initially did the stairs, which initially means that it had to be redone, probably, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you, Sunny Sunshine. The subcontractor should have been on the approved vendor list, right? Typically, there's only one deponent per deposition. Letitia's possibly next. Possibly, but they've already started filing some other motions, Savi. And thank you for being in the chat. Like they filed their motions. They're set to move on to the next steps because they already filed for a partial summary judgment. So
Tisha gonna crack under pressure.
I agree. There's only one at a time, but I don't think they're gonna even depose her. That's all I'm saying. Hey, Golden Mike. Okay. Let's see here. So I think the stairs had to be redone. I'm guessing though. I'm not saying they had to be. I'm just guessing.
It's a lot of redos.
Who initially did the stairs? Oh, I'm sorry. Who was the former framer on the job? Lone Star Framing. Who hired them? He said Vishal and I. He is really trying to make sure he don't say just him. Did Vishal hire every subcontractor? Yes. Why did he need a general contractor if he hired all the subs? Marcel said because in the state of Alabama, you need a general contractor's license in order to build anything. All right, let me see here. Let's see. Thank you for putting the context in there. Thank you, Kevin Moore. So it says Marcel says, I'm unaware of Vishal having a general contractor's license. And then he's trying to be smart. Vishal doesn't need a general contractor's license. He's being smart. And then the attorney says, I'm trying to get an idea of what your role is, you, Marcel. If he hired all the subcontractors, then what was it that Scope Industries, Inc. was supposed to do? And
not a damn
Marcel
thing.
says, be a general contractor. The attorney says, what role is that? Marcel says, well, being a general contractor involves, collecting, getting all the subs together, organizing the schedule, outlining a plan for the project, dealing with procurement of materials, procurement, things of that nature. That's Marcel said, things of that nature, and kind of organize everyone's schedule and controlling and getting the job done. So the attorney says, so scheduling is something that would have been in your, I don't know how to pronounce this word. I don't say it a lot. I've seen it. Is it Ballywick? I don't know. As the general contractor. And Marcel said, absolutely. And he said, so any delays in the scheduling will fall on you. Is that right? And Marcel said, that's not how that works. I beg.
So why he all on Instagram, y'all, on all these job sites with this damn short hard hat on, talking about we're building, guys. Look over here. Do you see the scope? Do you see the scope flag back here, guys? We're building. So you're really not building nothing. You tearing shit up is what you're doing.
To differ, just me personally, I beg to differ. I'm saying that outside of this deposition. All right. Then he says, what about ordering materials? Who is responsible for that? Marcel said that depends on what material we're talking about. Ordering materials comes between the general contractor, the project management company, and whatever the owner is going to procure himself or herself. Okay, so there were items that the owner was going to order and provide that are materials. Marcel said correct. And then there were items that the general contractor was to provide, and the general contractor was responsible for ordering those in a timely fashion, etc. Correct. Okay. Now your lawyer has mentioned several times during Mr. Shaw's deposition C, and I'm saying C for the big C for all the stuff we had to quarantine for and stuff. Okay. The attorney says, is your contention that C played some role in the delays that were experienced in meeting the deadlines? Marcel says, I don't quite know how to answer that question because based on the contract, when C was introduced and you have other things that contribute to the time being moved, then there are no delays. So in Marcel's head, there have been no delays. That's what this man has said. In my opinion, if Zencarns didn't depose Letitia, they dropped the ball. She couldn't talk herself out of a paper bag. Ooh, I got you. Okay, right. Couldn't put on the expo. Okay. Let's see. The attorney said, explain what you mean. Marcel said, I'm saying when time gets shifted, then there are no more delays based on the contract. That is not true. That's not how that works. The attorney says, still not following you. How has time shifted from when to when? Marcel says, based on the contract outlines a date, and it says, if things happen that are not outside of your control, and I think that we can agree, C was outside of my control. So the idea that the contract is in its entirety reads the date, and also based on your level of control. That's how he wrote it. I don't know what that man meant. That's how he wrote that sentence. Please like the video and thank y'all for being here.
So he's trying to say that based on the fact that y'all know coronavirus was around that time, 2019. He's trying to say that based on that being beyond his control, that he was unable to meet certain deadlines. But during that time, weren't you still running around saying that you guys were still working? I think I can go back to some 2019 posts that you were posting on social media saying that you guys were still working. So how is it that you weren't able to make deadlines? I'm trying to figure that out.
Was construction considered an essential service under the C restrictions? Marcel said construction workers are, but factory workers aren't, and construction workers depend heavily on the factory workers. The attorney says, so you're saying is C caused problems in getting materials? Is that what you're saying? Marcel said, absolutely. The attorney says, was it problems for your subs or was it just a problem for you? Real quick recall, Zen Gardens testified that their subcontractors had their materials on go because they had ordered them ahead of time. So it did not actually affect them like that. Marcel says, I don't understand how to differentiate the two. A problem for my subs. The attorney says, well, did your subs order materials? For instance, Alabama Concrete, did they have any issues with delays because of C? And Marcel says they're a vendor. And the attorney says, were they able to provide you with concrete? Marcel says, I don't know. That's not a good answer. And the attorney says, were they delayed? Marcel says, at times, based on the schedule, I think that we're trying to oversimplify this. The attorney says, I'm just trying to get an idea of what you're going to tell the jury when you go to testify. Are you going to stand up and say, well, you know, the reason we couldn't finish the project in a timely manner and in accordance with the contract was because of C? I love this attorney. And then Marcel says, the truth is that if we're sitting on an isolated island where C had no effect on us, then I think that would be harder for the jury to believe than the fact that, yes, while Alabama Concrete may have not been affected as much, certainly the people who provide wood frame forms do, and the people who provide drywall and paint and subsidiary things that you need in order to complete a project. So the idea that C didn't affect a project in Alabama, I would like to believe that, but that's just not true. The attorney says, so yes, you're going to tell the jury that C had an effect, and that was the reason that the project was delayed. Marcel says the project wasn't delayed.
It was.
And the attorney says, well, why was Martin and Kobe brought in? And Marcel says because of the owner's inexperience in running projects, especially during a situation where you have something like C. The attorney, this is where he gets in his bag. He starts earning his hourly rate again. He says, oh, okay, the owner's inexperience. Marcel said, that's what I believe because I didn't bring Martin and Kobe in, so I can't really speak to the intention of why it was. But this was also the owner's first project as well. I think in his inexperience caused him to jump the gun. The attorney says, okay, you indicated that Mr. Shaw had interviewed. Did you say all the subcontractors or did you say some subcontractors? Marcel said, everyone to my knowledge. The attorney said, why would Mr. Shaw want to interview the subcontractors to your knowledge? Marcel says, I think he wanted to negotiate the price with him. He wanted to have control. And based on Mr. Shaw's conversation with us, he and I will work on this together. And he has started the process of interviewing some subcontractors and vendors independent of me and long before I even was brought on board. Were you familiar with Mr. Shaw's background in construction? Marcel says, I was not familiar with Mr. Shaw's actual background in construction.
So why you hiring?
Were you aware that he had worked for Turner Construction for a number of years prior to getting the Zen Gardens group together? Marcel said, I was aware that he's a civil engineer that worked at a big GC firm. The attorney said substantially larger than yours. Would you agree? Turner Construction. I said, golly, earn your pay. And then let's see here. He says, yes. Okay. Did you and Mr. Shaw ever discuss the type projects that he worked on when he was at Turner? Marcel said, yes, we did. Okay. And were they larger than 60 unit apartment buildings? Marcel said, yes, they were. And he's having him take a look at number 4. Okay, they're starting to get into the weeds of the numbers. So I'm going to spare y'all just a little bit to see where we start getting back to his general just questions. Let me see.
So you hiring inexperienced people on this damn
Marcel
contract.
was saying he did not bill Zen Gardens the amount that he still owes versus the amount that's still due. He said, so he doesn't know the exact number. He said, I need time in an Excel sheet to look at this because these numbers are populated from a different Excel sheet and I can find that number out. The attorney says, why were the subs that you say were not paid, why were they not paid? And Marcel says, because Zen didn't pay me. So the attorney says, Zen didn't pay you, so you were going to pay it out of the $350,000. And Marcel was like, I was going to pay it out of the $277,000. Let me see. Then they list some people that are saying they're still owed, including Alabama Concrete. Let me see.
Which they gonna wind up suing
then
too.
It says, the attorney says, all right, so let's look at the top section. We have a creditor, and I assume that is a creditor of Scope. Is that correct? And Marcel says that's correct. The creditor is, I guess, engineered maintenance. And it says, do you have an invoice for $4,248 that you say has not been paid? Marcel said, yes. All right. He said there's a column called amount charged to Zen. Let's see. So look, he's describing the columns. The first column is the creditor. The second column is what Scope owes to the creditor. And the third column is what Scope is billing Zen Gardens. Okay. Let's see. And then it says, so you didn't send bills to Zen Garden to be paid? And Marcel said correct. So they weren't included on any of your invoices or requests for payment to Zen. And Marcel said, not a formal pay app. No, these are charges that may have happened after Zen stopped paying Scope. I think you should know this and it should not be a may have. Marcel thought he was going to scan his way through this. That attorney is on his backside, Mary Kelly. Oops. And we are getting there. We're almost done, y'all. I just wanted to let you know. I should tell you the progress. We are almost done. Okay, we're getting down to it. Y'all have lasted through 85 to 90% of this. Hey, Kathy Cruel. Oh, you got me. Okay, let me see here.
He ran up on a company that was keeping records of what was going on. And now they're going, let me pause it. So now they're going to wind up getting sued by the people that they were also supposed to pay that they never paid. And this was around the time, coincidentally, that he also went to Africa. So was some of this money also used on this luxurious trip that you were gone for? I think they said almost a month. So that could have been too why the job wasn't done at a timely manner as well, because you were out of the country, remember? So that's why some deadlines weren't met, because the person who took on the contract decided they were so stressed out and needed to go out of the country. So that's probably why some people were not paid, because you were out flossing over there and hanging out with the lions, tigers, and bears. Okay, let's keep on.
Marcel says that other payment is where, as part of this bill, which is $125,000, he says Scope only charged to a certain point, which may be March, April. We can find out exactly what that is. And then it said Scope charged Zen $9,200. What Scope hadn't charged Zen yet, because Scope just got the bill, was $116,000. I think they're putting some commas in some weird places. And he said it should have been a back charge because the framer broke a machine, and that should have came out of the framer's payment. And the attorney says, who was responsible for seeing that came out of the framer's payment? And Marcel said in normal situations, the general contractor would, but since the general contractor didn't pay the framer, he said it has to be communicated outwards. He said all back charges, change orders have to be communicated outwards to the person making the payment. And the attorney says, do you know if anybody ever advised Zen that the framer broke some equipment? Marcel said yes. He said, was that done in writing? Marcel said yes. Do you have a copy of that somewhere? Marcel said, I'm quite certain I do. And the attorney says, okay, let me see if I can figure this out. So there's a figure in the middle section. Down here it says Scope owes to creditors $263,000, $263,017.62. Now I've gone through they're interrupting themselves. I'm trying to complete their sentence. I've gone through where you show your math up here at the top, and I can't find any way to make $263,017.62 come out. So tell me how you did that. They're gonna go over their math on how they did that. I'm definitely not about to subject y'all to that. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so Marcel believes that the charges of around $281,000, $281,000 is, let's see, we spoke of not paying. When he spoke of not paying Scope any longer, between that time frame, Scope was constantly getting billed for things like equipment that is still on site, things that Mr. Shaw and other people, unbeknownst to Scope, has made charges on my Lowe's account, and that's up to $116,000. I don't know about that. There's some brick from General Shell, some concrete cutting that one of the superintendents ordered. He said, I don't know, some other stuff for Breezeway, paint for Sherwin-Williams, which is the equipment share stuff. He said the additional unbilled amounts from Alabama Concrete, that's probably a missed invoice. He said Sunbelt Rental, I think that was for drying out drywall, and it was done by Martin and Kobe, but all those things are just things that just happen to pile up. The math ain't mathing.
That's the same thing. That's what he did to Joy. Y'all remember when Joy kept saying, I need an itemized bill of what's going on with this stuff. Like I'm missing a chandelier, like I'm missing this, and this. And it said that this was purchased and that was purchased. Like I need a breakdown of what's being purchased, because he was just out purchasing stuff instead of telling her, I need more money for this so that I can complete the job, and didn't want to tell her what the money was being spent on. So it sounded like he was doing the same thing with Zen. They're saying there's some stuff for Sherwin-Williams and other pieces of property and stuff that he was purchasing, and they don't have an account for it. So it's looking like the same shit that he was doing to them. He was doing the same thing to Joy and everybody else.
Oh, your cut and paste wife is the president, right? She do cut and paste. We know about that shipping information. She does cut and paste. Famous for copy and paste. Got you, copy and paste. I had you though. Okay, so he's adding up all this stuff. He's saying he still owe these people. And I'm going down.
Wow.
It said Lowe's was charged to Scope. Okay, then Marcel says, I believe that Zen Gardens later opened another account, and I don't know, they also opened another account at Sherwin-Williams, and I don't know, I guess the person, whoever's doing, he says, I don't know, I'm not thinking it was fraud, but he mentions the word fraud, he trying to put it back on them. That's what he said. I think that whoever did the charge, maybe the cashier was familiar with putting it on Scope's accounts, so they continue to put it on Scope's accounts instead of Zen's account. The attorney says, all right, so this middle section you have for 323, and they're talking about the retainage owed to Scope, more numbers. He's saying he thinks those numbers include bills that he needs to get paid back to pay other people. That's what Marcel is saying. I'm just reading it. He says, Marcel says there's an explanation for every one of the numbers, and the numbers are not incorrect. Whether we agree on the number is one thing, but the numbers are not incorrect. So I have to go back and look at the explanations. He says, it's been a couple of years since I've looked at this. The attorney said, well, sadly, this is my opportunity to ask you about it and figure out how we came to these figures. That's why I told you it was going to take a while on this. So Marcel said, if I'm permitted, I can pull up my computer and we can go through it. I'm pretty sure I have the Excel document. And the attorney lets him look to see if he has the document. All right, so he may have found it because they're still going over a couple things. All right, let's see. All right, so he wants to go back to March 2020. Again, we are almost done. We have like 5 pages left. Just want to let y'all know. Let's see. What did common sense say? Because I see Aquitas there for sure. Common sense. Nah, we went to Lowe's for the house. That's what I was gonna think. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of this stuff sounds criminal. I know, in my opinion, and allegedly, that's what it sounded like. Right? I know, y'all. When I read it, I'm like, all right, now. Okay. It says, who was the project manager as of March 20th, 2020 for Skolt Industries on the Zen Garden project? And Marcel says, I believe we were either at the point or going to hire Mike Scott as the senior project manager. This is where the attorney corrects him and says, Michael Scott? And then Marcel says, yeah, because you remember a few hours ago, he didn't know who Mike Scott was. Marcel couldn't tell you Mike Scott was his uncle. He only referred to him as Michael Scott. And then he slipped up and called him Mike Scott just now. And the attorney was sharp. He caught it. So that was really funny to me. Okay. Then it says, Marcel says, we were kind of looking for a project manager. And well, Vishal said we didn't need a superintendent until a couple of months. And the attorney says, okay, so Michael Scott was going, or he was contemplated, or was he hired on as a senior project manager? And Marcel says, I don't know exact time frame in which Michael Scott came on board, but I believe it was probably March, because I know on our first pay app, we billed for him twice. So I've got to figure out which one when he came. I don't know. Did he ever leave the job? Yes. When did he leave the job? In September or October of 2020. Was he replaced with Martin and Kobe? And Marcel says that would be two different entities that will replace him. There were two entities that replaced him. And Marcel says he was hired as a Skolt employee, and Martin and Kobe was hired outside. And the attorney says they were a direct hire by Zen Gardens. Marcel says, right, with no influence from Skolt. Okay. And it says, so Michael Scott, during that time, was he remote? Marcel said yes. The attorney says he was not an on-site senior project manager. Marcel said correct. So he was in Houston. Marcel says remote. Remote from where? Was he living in Houston? Marcel said, I think he was in between Houston and Atlanta. He was remote, he wasn't on site. Hey, contract and work remote. Bliss or B-list? Marcel has no apparent expertise in your opinion, B-list. I'm telling you. Okay, he wasn't. Marcel, or the attorney said he wasn't here sitting in a trailer on the property out in Madison or on Slaughter Road. And Marcel says, as a project manager, the attorney said right. And Marcel says, yeah, most aren't. The attorney says, but he was a remote senior project manager. All right. Who was the project manager when this project started? Marcel said we didn't have a project manager when the project started. Did you hire one? Yes, we did. Who was it? Michael Scott. Was there anybody other than Michael Scott acting as the project manager? And then Marcel says Vishal. And the attorney says, okay, so the GM and the owner were acting as the project manager for this project. Is that right? He says correct. Okay. Did Michael Scott ever come to Huntsville during the course of his employ by Skolt Industries? Yes. How many times? I believe it was at least once or twice a month, but I know it was at least once a month. Did John Carroll ever work on this project? No. Did Legier Allen ever work on this project? No. Did Lindsay Neal ever work on this project? I don't know. I'll have to look. No, she didn't. She was let go right before the project. John Carroll, did he ever work on this project? Marcel said, I said no. All right. So what was Mark Scott's role? And Marcel says Mark Scott, this is not Michael Scott. Mark Scott was hired as a superintendent. Okay. Was he on site? Yes. What's his background? Has he worked in commercial construction of multi-unit or multi-family unit projects before? I don't know that offhand. I know he worked in commercial construction and multi-family units. And what did you say his position was? Superintendent. Okay. Had he ever been a superintendent on a project of this size or prior to Zen Garden project? Yes. Do you know which projects? No. Who did he work for? At the time, he worked for, I'm going to say Gee Construction. I am not sure. Also worked for Robbins and Morton for some years. Where are they located? I don't know. Okay. Does he still work for Skolt Industries? No. Was this the only project he ever worked for Skolt Industries? No. What other projects did he work on? I can't name offhand, but he works for other projects. Who is James Freeman? James Freeman is someone that Vishal and I hired. He said, you and Vishal hired him. Correct. All right. Was he a Skolt employee or was he a Zen Gardens employee? He was a Skolt employee. And what was his position? Superintendent for this project. So you have two superintendents. Marcel says no. Did you have two superintendents at the same time? No. So was James Freeman initially the superintendent and then Mark Scott became the superintendent? That's correct. Was Mark Scott remote or on site? He was on site. Was James Freeman remote or on site? On site. What about Marcel Scott? Was he remote or on site? On site. You weren't out there daily though, were you? And Marcel said I was out there probably about 60 to 70% of the time. Now y'all. Yep, Paulette, little Paulette, yes. Hey, Tara Daniels. Hey, God's child. We're at the finish line. We're 2 pages left. Okay. Let's see. Okay, Mr. Scott, when you were awarded this contract with Zen Gardens, would it be fair to say that this was the biggest project that Scout Industries has worked on? Yes. And by biggest, I mean both in terms of the number of units, the size of the project, and the size of the cost of the project. Yes. And all this was going on in 2020 and early 2021, correct? And late 2021. That's what Marcella said, yes, and late 2021. Okay. The attorney says, when did Black LLC come into being? 2018. And Black Bottles, 2021. Okay. He says, you told me you were filming your TV show. You started doing that in 2019 too. 2019, is that right? Or was it 2017? Marcel said, we started in probably November 2017 filming throughout 2018 and came on air in 2019. He said, are you still doing that show? Yep. Has there been a break? I mean, did you continue to film episodes during 2019, 2020, 2021? Yes. Okay. We had talked a little bit about the contractors that Scout had hired as opposed to those that you contend that Zen Gardens had hired. The roofer. Who was the roofer? John Ragland. What's the name of his company? I don't know offhand. Did he have a contract with you or Zen? I believe he had a contract with Zen. It says, think he was contracted with Zen. Okay. Do you have a copy of your subcontracts that were signed? Yes. Okay. You told me the framer was somebody, Lone Star or something out of Texas, it sounds like. Right. And they had a construction with you though, right? Yes. All right. And then what about the sheetrock folks? Who was that? The sheetrock guy and I had an agreement, but I don't know if we had a contract. I don't think he made a contract with me. I think he made either made a contract with Martin and Kobe or directly with Zen. I don't recall that. All right. You don't remember who it was. And Marcel said there were several. Okay, painters, who contracted them? I contracted them originally, and then the contract was renegotiated by Vishal, and then I held that contract under the newer negotiations with Vishal. What about electricians? I had the contract with the electrician. Who was that? That was Steel Electric, and that contract was negotiated by myself and Vishal as well. Okay, their contract was with Scout, right? Scout, yes. Did Scout have to hire anyone to clean up the concrete work around the sidewalks and stairs after the work had been done by the Scout subcontractor? Yes. Okay, who was that? I don't know their name. Did you ever have to hire anybody to grind the concrete? Yes. And do you know who that contractor was? I don't know exactly the name of the contractor. Was that somebody you hired or was it somebody Martin and Kobe hired? I'm pretty sure we all worked together on that, but the contract, I forget who was hired to do it. When you were advised that Martin and Kobe were going to be brought on board, did you ever object to that? Not initially. Then Marcel says, I didn't fully understand their capacity. And the way it was explained to me was that they were coming on as a kind of overseas construction management to provide additional support. And it wasn't until I recognized their level of competence before I made a note to Vishal of what they were bringing to the table. You said their level of competence. Yes. What was your impression of the level of competence? Well, early on, I thought that, now this is so funny because this is how some people describe Marcel, but he's trying to put it off on them. He says, well, early on, I thought that one of the guys spoke very eloquently and he was highly competent. His name was Will, and he was there, the project manager. And he said, yeah, Will McCullough. It wasn't until maybe a month or two when I started seeing holes. And then by month 3, I said, this guy has no idea what he's doing. This sounds like what somebody would say about Marcel, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Is that him, Sabi? Oh my gosh. He said, this guy has no idea what he's doing. And subsequently, Vishal agreed with me and let him go. Okay. Were you made aware of any problems with the flooring of any of the units? No. And by that, I mean like the flooring company, the flooring coming up, rising off the subfloor. No. Okay. Do you know if Mr. Petty of Petty HVAC had ever done any multifamily projects prior to being hired to do Zen Gardens? I don't know. Do you know if anything about Mr. Petty's work delayed the project because it couldn't pass inspection or they couldn't get a certificate of occupancy? I can't say that. Let's see. I think that he failed the inspection multiple times, but then again, we had citywide complaints about this inspector. So while he did fail inspections, that 2-3 week delay can't be placed all on him when you have a picky inspector. So I'd have to disagree with that. Have you ever used Mr. Petty before in any kind of, well, you hadn't done this size project, but had you ever used him before? Yes. Okay, what project? Restaurants, okay, and commercial projects. And he said, okay, but not your apartment project, so to speak. You said you were also doing home building. Is that correct? Marcel says, no, that's not correct. I thought, and the attorney says, I thought one of the things that was residential construction. You don't do residential construction? He says, I don't know where it says that. He says it's on page 720. And then it says, I know you're remodeling your house, but have you built any other houses? At this point, no. Okay, so your residential experience is remodeling the house that you're currently living in? No. Okay, what else? I have remodeled several homes, flipped several homes, did major residential construction in several areas. Have you ever had a complaint filed by anyone with the Home Builders Licensure Board? He says no. Have you ever had a complaint? Oh, sorry. The attorney says, what is OSHA 300? And Marcel says, I don't know. I think it should be OSHA 30. And the attorney says, what is OSHA 30? And Marcel says, it's a compliance for safety specs, making sure people are following safety protocol on job sites and are aware of it. That's very funny when Marcel just filmed himself on a live in some sneakers at a construction site instead of steel-toe boots. Have you done any projects in Tennessee? Yes. He says several commercial and residential construction projects. And the attorney says any multi-unit projects the size of Zen Gardens. And Marcel, he getting a little smart. He was like, I spoke that this was my first one, so no. And the attorney says you haven't done one since Zen Gardens. And he said, no, left a bad taste in my mouth. I bet it did. I don't care who tell it. Let me talk to Vishal. Oh, Mr. Rogers said he wanted to go talk to his client, Vishal, real fast, which is Zen Gardens. Then he came back. Are you familiar with Martin and Kobe? I know you are from this project, but did you know Martin and Kobe before? And he said he's seen the name. And the attorney said, okay, when they were brought on, what was your understanding their role was going to be? And Marcel said, acting in the capacity of a project manager, from what I understood. Has Zen Gardens mentioned to you they were unhappy with the setup with the senior remote project or senior project manager being remote? And he said in September, I think Vishal told me that, yes, at that point, Vishal told me in September that he didn't want the senior project being remote and that I was to fire him because he wasn't paying him anymore. Okay, who is Val Collier? Val Collier worked with Martin and Kobe. What was his role? I don't know exactly. I think he was assistant superintendent or superintendent. Okay. And then he said, tell me, what were your duties once Martin and Kobe came on? And Marcel says, Vishal expressed to me that he no longer had confidence in me running the daily operation. So we were scheduled to have a 4:00 meeting with Martin and Kobe every day in which he take direction from Martin and Kobe and kind of to the best of his ability, keep me in the loop. And at that point, were you still receiving payments from Zen so that you could pay your subcontractors? At that point, Zen was in the process, but kind of paying the subcontractors behind my back and negotiating with them behind my back. Okay, did you receive any payments after Martin and Kobe came on that you distributed amongst your subs? And Marcel says, are you saying vendors or subs? And he said, either. And Marcel said throughout this, yes, I did. That was a specific date question and he didn't answer it to me. Okay, and you may not have an exact figure, but I want your best estimate as to how much money came from Zen to Scope that went out to the subcontractors. Marcel did not respond. It says no response. And then the attorney said, was it millions of dollars? And then Marcel said, well, I would say about maybe 3 to 4 million. And okay. Then the attorney says 3 to 3.5, 4 million, something like that. Marcel says maybe something like that. Okay. Do you know what the final cost of the project was at Zen Gardens? I don't know what the final true cost was. No. Do you know if it was in excess of 10 million? And Marcel says, I don't. Would you agree with me that if it was in excess of 10,318,603, that it would exceed the guaranteed maximum price? No. Oh, you don't? He says, no, I agree that if it was in excess of 10,318 and it wasn't due to the owner spending it, then it would exceed guaranteed maximum price. But the portion the contractors expended was not over 10,318. And the attorney says, I don't know what else to ask you, so I'm going to quit. And Marcel says, all right. So they ended at 4:50 p.m. and we are done. We made it. We made it. First of all, let me give y'all my for all the super chats, super stickers, and
y'all. That is the end. So we'll have
We go.
All right, so that is the end, guys. We will have another part tomorrow. Okay. Again, shout out to Trending at some point. Shout out to her. She did give me permission to use the content. Okay. There is more. We will have an additional video tomorrow. I'm going to take a break from the jail phone calls with Shirley Strawberry because I'm kind of getting burnt out on those as well from her and Ernesto. We already know them two are ratchet. But this information here is much, much more juicier. So we will definitely continue with this because I know you guys are definitely interested into finding out the ins and outs of what's going on with this deposition. Okay, so we will continue with that. All right. I see you guys were telling me about Unc over there on her channel, child. She needs to talk about me so she can get something going on over there. I ain't worried about Wanda, okay? I am not worried about Wanda. She don't know shit about me or my husband. So, child, she is super pressed because I showed that picture of her dad on my channel because she showed a picture of my husband. So, y'all know if we're going to be petty, baby, let's be petty. And please do not threaten me, Wanda, with a good time, okay? Let me see, can I find my sugar daddy right quick before I go? Let me get, since you mad, girl, let me get you super mad. Go and put your cape on over there. Let me see, here he go. Hey, baby, how you doing? Look at my sugar daddy. Looking all wormy tonight. Look at him. Wanda, don't he? Child, Wanda, you better respect me because I'm your stepmama now, okay? Your daddy already told me I can discipline you now. Now, don't make me now. You better respect me over there because I'm your stepmama. You do as I say and not as I do, okay? Let's get on out here, y'all. I don't want her over there, child, having heart palpitations over there, worried about caramel. But y'all, let me leave her alone. Because child, she is over there having a whole moment. Well, let's get on out here. Y'all have a great night. Okay, we will have Car Chronicles in the morning. Okay, we'll have Car Chronicles in the morning. And again, we will have our pop-in video tomorrow. Okay. Is my chat frozen? Is my chat frozen? Ooh, are you guys still here? Ooh, did the chat freeze? Did we freeze? Oh no, we still counting. Are you guys there? Can y'all put a 1 in the chat if you can hear me? Put a 1 in the chat if you can hear me. Y'all put a 1 in the chat. Can y'all hear me? Did my video freeze? Put a 1 in the chat, guys. Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me? Okay, so let's get on out of here, guys. Thank y'all for being here. Goodbye.